We are back again to do the rest of the play-in bracket phase preview. No bad jokes in the intro this time. I know what you're thinking, except for my face. At first glance, the second day of play-in bracket phase features both the most likely and the least likely upset of this round. First matchup is G2 Esports versus Infinity Esports, and this is the one that looks like it should be the easiest landslide, right? Infinity kind of might be the worst second seed team going into the play-in bracket stage. Seems reasonable, right? They had a terrible day one. Hold on a sec. Weren't Infinity Esports that team that got in basically the day before play-in started and the schedule had to be changed for? Doesn't it make sense that they would have major jet lag and need catch-up time before they had their turnaround, and going 2-0 on the second day would therefore be actually pretty impressive in context? Don't answer that question, I already know the answer. In that context, we've suddenly opened up a whole new world. We have a play-in team that has taken a game off of a major region play-in team, and G2 themselves have not looked the best. Obviously, we have to see if some of Infinity Esports' strengths line up with G2's weaknesses before we can kind of talk a little bit more about Infinity's game plan here. When people talk about G2's weaknesses, they immediately talk about the mechanical skill of their bottom lane. I don't necessarily think it's as simple as Hjarnid can't lane, but there are a lot of things that Hjarnid does, like simply overextend beyond the wave, that are symptomatic of G2 in general. There are some similarities between G2 and some of the criticisms of EDG that we had before in terms of how they set up their 1-3-1 despite being a 1-3-1 team. However, I would say overall that one of their biggest issues is just pushing out mid before they get pressure in sides, which makes them really easy to flank on in the mid lane, and in this case, just weird lane incitements in general. I can't possibly think of a situation or a scenario where Infinity Esports could maybe take advantage of this, can you?
EDG just seems so far in control outside of a major error. I don't see how you come back into the game, but they're going to look to do it right now. Looking to find the team fight initiation is Infinity, but Solid Snake's going to be taken low already. They get Iboy, but Iboy's already going to be killed. The double kill over to Paco. Infinity have found multiple members of EDG!
Oh. Yeah, alright, yeah. Outside of that, I'd say one of the hallmarks of Infinity Esports has just been how efficient Solid Snake has been in terms of his pathing and making sure that he is prepared for a strong team fight engage. Like you saw in that clip, Infinity Esports would go out of their way to make sure that Solid Snake can farm very efficiently, can get as many camps as possible so that when it gets to a point in the game, he can force something with an experience advantage, with gold advantage, what have you. And he has a pretty sizable XP differential at 10 minutes lead relative to his compatriots in the jungle position in the play-in. Normally, I don't really put much stock in stats, but obviously this is pretty significant overall. Definitely something to hang your hat on just a little bit in terms of understanding how Infinity Esports want to play and how they're approaching the game in general. Considering how much criticism has been levied at Jankos, that could pretty much be a good thing for them. If Jankos is having one of those games where he's just on the wrong part of the map, his mid lane isn't pushed out, he's contesting Scuttle Crab, and suddenly Solid Snake comes around with a good solid level over him. Yeah, I made that pun. Anyway, if that happens, then you're in a position where suddenly you could swing the game in a different direction for an Infinity, and an upset is definitely possible. Combine that with what I consider to be probably the most hype match of play-in in G-Rex versus Supermassive, and day 2 is shaping up to be pretty great. I don't think any jungler has gotten as much praise in play-in stage as G-Rex is empty, but that doesn't mean that he is perfect. I would say that one of the things that G-Rex does centers around him. Again, not necessarily his fault. For example, in this case, they get a pick off of Gambit. There's a pretty good opening to take Dragon, but instead they just continue to force for champions, not really interested in objectives. There's one major thing I can knock G-Rex for is that they're not nearly as interested in neutrals and towers as they are in champion kills. Age-old criticism of pretty much any extremely aggressive team, but here it really sticks. If you're used to a team going for Dragon when it's up, stacking those up, watching lots of America loves their Dragons, let me tell you, then G-Rex is probably a little weird to you. Just forcing on tempo, not really understanding when they should reset, not really understanding when they should kind of just back up, look for something safe, institute vision control, and see what to do from there. Implementing vision and defending it is really where I see Supermassive's opening being. G-Rex pretty notoriously will just lay down their wards, not necessarily have the best idea for what steps they need to take. Here, in a situation against Gambit, they sort of allow Gambits to back before them, they push out the wave, and they stay on the map longer than they should have, and as a result, it's going to end up where they're all those beautiful pink wards that you see on the top side of the map. Just look at them glistening beautifully and longingly. Those extra waves, just too good. G-Rex try to force this tower, get some damage, but there's no way they can feasibly take it if they take into account sort of the 30-second rule of the enemy team having their champions back out on the map, and they lose all of that hard-fought work that they put their time and energy into securing around the back of that Baron pit. I would say that Supermassive's strength overall, as far as players and teams go, is their vision control. They're often pretty meticulous about moving up as units to get vision. For example, here you see Stomachhead waiting particularly for Snowflower before he can get that ward in before he sets up for this play. Overall, because he knows that he has his backup there, they have the pick potential, everything should be able to come up Supermassive. In general, both G-Rex and Supermassive rely a lot on their bottom lane, getting a lead early on. Koala is definitely not one to shake a stick at, and Snowflower has been getting a lot of attention, a lot of excitement throughout the play-in stage, so this is definitely something that you want to pay attention to in how those two bot lanes will match up, how much vision Supermassive can get in place, and how much G-Rex will contest or not those types of objectives, because I feel like that can really make or break and give Supermassive perhaps the easiest pathway towards upsetting a major region team. That is probably what I'm going to say if you put a gun to my head, is that Supermassive versus G-Rex is the most likely upset, but that answer is a bit too easy, so I want to say that Infinity versus G2 is kind of the sleeper match, which is why this video is a little bit shorter, because you have the most easy matchups in terms of strengths and weaknesses on the second day. I will say that the Infinity G2 is more likely to be kind of a one-off win by Infinity, where Jankos has a bad game, or G2 overextends a little bit too much and Infinity find their way back in. Thanks for watching my content so far. If you want to follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my YouTube channel, that will be greatly appreciated.